So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Postgrad Solutions webinar service. Today in association with Urbanest, London student accommodation with a difference. I have got Matt with me today, who is a sales executive at Urbanest, who will be going through a presentation with you about all things Urbanest and why they are the best place to come and stay while studying in London. So for those of you that haven't seen one of our webinars before, for 20 years now, we've been helping postgraduate students apply for their perfect postgraduate program. And I'm sure this year will be no different. Like many of you, even during these uncertain times, we'll be looking to apply, whether it's for this year or for next year, and obviously looking for places to stay. Now, just before I hand you over to Matt and give you a bit of an insight as to, like, I'm sure he will mention to you about why Urbanest are the best. A few house rules just to cover. So should you have a question throughout this webinar, at the bottom of your screen there is a raised hand. Please click on that or use the Q&A facility, which will allow us to answer any questions you might have. There will be a Q&A session at the end. We've already had some questions come in, which is fantastic. So we'll be keen to answer them at the very end of the presentation. But if you do have any questions that arise throughout the presentation or while Matt's talking, please ask the question at the bottom and we'll be happy to answer them at the very end. Whether or not you want to be named or nationality named is up to you. Please do let us know at the time. This is being streamed live via our Facebook page and our YouTube page as well. So for those of you that are viewing via our Facebook page around the world, hi, thank you very much for joining. And finally, by attending this webinar, you are giving ourselves and Urbanest the opportunity to contact you after this webinar. If you don't wish to be contacted or contacted via marketing preferences, please contact myself, Gareth, at postgradsolutions.com. So what I will do now is I'll pass over to Matt. He will talk to you everything about Urbanest, and then I will be back at the end of the presentation to do a Q&A and to thank him for what's sure to be a great presentation. Thank you very much. Matt, over to you.
Thank you very much for that, Gareth. Right, okay, so I'm going to start sharing my presentation with you. Just bear with me a second. Technical difficulties and all that, I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine, but here we go. Right, so yes, thank you very much for that. As Gareth has said, my name's Matt. I am a sales and marketing executive at Urbanest. So basically, I run the website and the promotional materials and make sure that everything is looking up to the standards that it does. And also I help in booking in rooms. Any questions you might have, I'm probably the one that's going to answer them. I started at Urbanest at the Urbanest Tower Bridge property about 5 years ago. Then I moved to King's Cross, and then I've started this role about 4 years ago. So I have a bit of experience in the properties as well. Yeah, just sort of live and breathe Urbanest. So hopefully I should be able to walk you through who we are as a company. So what we're going to go through today is an introduction to Urbanest, and then I'm going to touch on what we call the Urbanest way, how we see ourselves as that a little bit different. There'll be a short video, and then I'll go on to discuss our university partners, the universities that we have relationships with in London. Then I'll go on to talk a little bit about the rooms that we have to offer, including our studio collection, as well as the locations that we have in Zone 1 London. Also, I'll move on to the experience that you'll have as a student when you live at Urbanest, and then a little bit of information about coronavirus and how we're making sure the students are well looked after through the rest of the year. And then obviously we'll go on to any questions that you might have at the end. So a little bit about Urbanest. The company was founded in 2009 by some of the managing directors who used to work at another student accommodation, and one of the bigger ones in the UK, but wanted to specialise in solely London student accommodation, which is what we do. We only operate in Zone 1 Central London, and that gives us sort of an understanding of the city, of the needs of the students that want accommodation here, and really that makes us the best in terms of student accommodation in the city. We work very closely with a number of universities, and that means that we have buildings close to those universities as well. Obviously, one of the benefits of living in London is being close to the university that you're going to, as well as being close to everything else that London has to offer. All our buildings are beautifully appointed as well, nice and modern and designed with students in mind. As I said, very close relationships with London universities, be that in actually offering beds for those students or a number of different avenues, but yeah, we work very closely with them. We offer great rooms for postgrad students. Obviously, being a postgrad, you potentially want a little bit more peace and quiet and more time to focus on your studies. And the studio rooms that we offer are perfect for this. I'll touch on that a bit later. We have a community spirit at all of our buildings. Obviously, we run events and the like, and obviously just the interaction between the people that work at the properties and the students, and between the students themselves, we're very proud of, and we try to foster as much as possible. And then finally, we have a range of cafes and restaurants and supermarkets actually in our buildings. The newest of which is a series of sort of street food vendors at our Urbanest Hoxton property, which we're very happy with, and I actually live pretty close to it, so I've been going there quite a lot. Anyway, we'll move on to what we call the Urbanest way. So we believe that we are student living made better, and now that's a pretty bold claim, but I think sort of as we'll go through, you will agree with us. We make sure that the students are well looked after. First and foremost, that's our priority. And we do that with 24-hour on-site support. Now, that means that we have reception staff through the day, as well as concierge through the night. So the buildings are manned 24 hours a day by people that will be able to look after you. So those people are very knowledgeable of the local area. Most of them live in London and know a lot about where they work. So if you have any questions about where the best place to go have a coffee is, where to go out of an evening, they should be able to help you. As I mentioned, we do offer a range of events. Now, I'll go into that a bit later on, but essentially that means anything from welcome parties to Zoom parties in this day and age, and everything in between. We offer a range of things to try and make your life a little bit easier, including sort of parcel collection. Everything's looked after at the reception. We have all-inclusive rents, so no hidden surprises when you're paying for your rent. And everything's just safe and secure. There's CCTV through the building, and your room is lockable from a key that only you can use. So I'm going to move on now to a brief video presentation about Urbanest. It's a couple of minutes long, and hopefully it gives you more of a feel of how we promote ourselves within London. Give me a sec for it to buffer. thank you very much. So yeah, that's just a bit of an intro of who we are. Obviously, everything that I'll be talking about will be covered in that video. But yeah, just I'll go into it in a little bit more detail and a bit less flashy, I'm sure. But right, we'll move on to our university partners that we work with. Now, these are the institutions that we have either agreements with, where we house their students, or just very close working relationships. Now, obviously, there's a couple of names on there, for instance, NYU, that aren't in London, but they do have a London campus, and we look after about 140 of their students at one of our buildings. The rest of these institutions we have, have been working with since pretty much when we opened in some cases, and we are recommended by them as a university accommodation option. So if you have any questions about being a student of one of these universities and booking a room with Urbanest, I'll be happy to help with that. So I'll just touch on our room types. As I said earlier, I'll have a look through these with you. So all of our rooms across Urbanest are up to the same brilliant standard, but they just come in different shapes and sizes. So the room types are as follows. We have twin rooms, which are, as the name suggests, a room that you share with another person. Now, that means that you have 2 beds in the same room, and then you share a bathroom and a kitchen as well. We then have private rooms, which is where you have your own room, and then you share 2 bathrooms between 3 people in a flat, and then you all share the kitchen. That's normally how they're configured. We then have ensuite rooms where you have your own room and your own bathroom, but then you share a kitchen with anywhere between 5 and 12 people, depending on the size of the flat. And then, of course, we have our studios, which are sort of self-contained units with a living space, a bed, obviously, a bathroom and a kitchen. It's basically everything that you need within the one room. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, we like to keep it easy for our students. So the rent is all inclusive, and that includes 75 megabytes of Wi-Fi. Every room has underfloor heating, which is, believe me, a godsend, especially in the winter months, which are seemingly never ending in this country. And then there's loads of storage space in most of our properties, or all of our properties, rooms. Some of them more so than others, but we try to make it as comfortable as possible for you while you're living there. Obviously, it's your home for the year. You work in that room, you sleep in that room, you spend your leisure time in that room. We want you to enjoy it as much as possible. All of our kitchens and our bathrooms are all beautiful and easy to clean, which, believe me, is very important. And last but not least, each of them is locked by a key fob that is only you have access to. Obviously, it gets you into the reception and the lift lobby and places like that, but only your key fob can open your room. No one else can do so. So I just want to touch on the studio collection that we have on offer with Urbanest. Now, these are the rooms that are probably the best that we have to offer in the best locations of the buildings, with the biggest floor space and so on. So they come into 3 types. The studio room, which is sort of the entry category. That is a room that contains a bed, a living space, large desk, kitchen area and bathroom, self-contained, as I mentioned earlier. And these ones are perfect for postgrad students. Essentially, as I said at the start, most postgrads want to, they want to come to do their postgraduate degree. It's only a year. They want to do it and focus on it. And these rooms are perfect for that. No noisy kitchen conversations at 4 in the morning. Everything's in your own self-contained unit. And obviously, you might worry that because you're not meeting or interacting with people through the building in a shared kitchen space, you'd miss out on some of the social aspects. Well, that's not the case at all. We try to make sure that everyone gets to know each other in the early weeks of the start of tenancies, and continue to do so through the year. We have Facebook groups that we set up to make sure that people can stay connected. And obviously the events we run that I touched on and we'll go on to in a bit more detail later. The next category up would be a luxury studio. These are available at a few of our locations, and they are similar to the studio, but a bit more floor space, maybe in a higher part of the building. with a bigger bathroom and a bit more storage space as well. Now these rooms they're beautiful. They are some of the best ones that we have to offer, with some of the best views. But obviously the sort of the cream of the crop of our rooms are the penthouse studios. Now, these are only available at our Urbanest Westminster Bridge property, which is obviously on Westminster Bridge Road, with views of the Houses of Parliament. And as a result, these rooms are great because they have sort of unparalleled views of the city. On the top floor, some of them are duplex, so split over 2 levels. Some of them have access to private balconies. They really are the best rooms that we have to offer. Now, as it says here, there's a little bit extra space can make a big difference, and we really believe that. You know, as I said, if you're living in one space and working in one space and spending most of your time in the same space, you want it to be as nice as possible, and these rooms really do offer you that. Just to touch on, because obviously you've come along to our webinar today. If you were to book a studio by Sunday of this week, the 23rd, we will offer you a free month's rent. So if you have any questions on that, please just send me a message at the end. Obviously, we have another range of room types available: the twin rooms, privates, and en-suites that I mentioned. These are at most of our properties, if not all. Twin rooms a bit less so, but there's still a decent amount through the city. Obviously, these are great for getting to meet people and those aforementioned kitchen chats. But yeah, they are fantastic rooms as well, and they come with the same brilliant specification of fixtures and fittings and beds that all of our properties do. So yeah, there's really no bad choice here. So I just want to touch on the 7 locations that we have to offer in London, soon to be 8. They range all over the city. Now on this map here, you can see the green circles, that's where our properties are. And then the sort of black, grey text boxes is where all the universities are. So I'm sure you noticed that there's quite a lot of universities that are very close to our properties. And as I said at the start, this is very much by design. We want students to have an easy commute as possible. As part of one of the benefits of living in London is not having to commute in and out of London, having the ease of journeying to and from university, maybe an extra half an hour's sleep here and there. Means that you can have time to enjoy the other bits of your life whilst being a student in London, which obviously are plentiful. There are a couple of properties that maybe aren't as close as you would like. For instance, I don't know if you want to live in Urbanest Hoxton because you like the area, but you study at the University of Westminster. It doesn't take much longer than 20-25 minutes to get across town on public transport. All of our properties are also very, very close to London Undergrounds. I think maximum a 7-minute walk away from a tube station. So you're never too far away from being connected to any other parts of the city. So these are all the buildings that we have to offer. As I mentioned, there is there's an eighth picture here, Urbanest City, which is opening for next year, but I'll just focus on the 7 that are open now. Right, I'm going to start with Urbanest Hoxton. So this property, as the name suggests, is in Hoxton or Shoreditch, east central part of London. It's 5 minutes away from the Old Street tube station. It's really, really close to city. It's about a 10-15 minute walk away, making it perfect for city students, but also, it's not too far away from all the other major London universities. This property is mostly studios, so I would always recommend this one for anyone who's studying as a postgrad. It tends to be postgraduate students that book here, sort of a 70-30 split in favour of postgrads, and as a result, it has that sort of similar-minded people in the property, which is always a good thing. As I mentioned, there is a on-site cafe which does that sort of street food thing, it's great. It really is very good. Always really good to have something to eat if you don't fancy cooking after a day at uni. But if you do, there is a supermarket also on the building, just a bit further down the road. There is a fitness room as well. It is perhaps not what I would class as a full gym, but certainly somewhere that you can supplement other workouts. And there are a range of other social spaces through the building. I'm going to quickly show you a little 1-minute presentation of what Urbanest Hoxton looks like. Bear with me just 1 second. There we go. So the next property on the list is Urbanest Vauxhall. Now this building is predominantly made up of King's College students. This property is one of their sort of official accommodation options, and as a result it has about 400 students that will go to King's College. The remainder are 50 studios that we offer out to whoever wants to book them at the very top of the building. So this building is 31 stories tall. It's massive. It's a dominant feature on the landscape down there, and has fantastic views across London. It really does. 31st story common room with sort of an outside balcony area as well as sort of a gaming / cinema room in the top of the building as well. There's mezzanine study areas through the building for a bit more private study. There's conference rooms and meeting rooms that you can use and book out if you want to get your head down, maybe with a group of people. And yeah, as I said, this property is perfect for King's students, but also Imperial's pretty close as well. And yeah, it's well enough connected that you can be in town in 10 to 15 minutes. Moving on to Urbanest St Pancras. This is maybe one of my favourite buildings simply because it's down by the canal, Regent's Canal in London. So it's near St Pancras King's Cross Station, but it's very, very quiet. It's really tranquil and peaceful. It really feels like you sort of left London for a little bit. But also, you know, it maintains it being very close to the centre of town. And in addition to that, in the King's Cross area at the moment, there's a new development called the King's Cross Quarter, which has loads of bars and cafes and restaurants and places like that. So yeah, you get a well-rounded student experience, I would say. In addition to that, Urbanest King's Cross, a couple of minutes away from Urbanest St Pancras, is very similar in terms of the location. So also has use of all those fantastic amenities at the King's Cross Quarter section of London, and Coal Drops Yard, which is a new shopping development which has just gone up maybe last year, which is great for eating out. And then within the building itself, we actually have an award-winning burger restaurant called Cut and Grinds. They do offer a discount to students and staff, which is great. And also throughout the building, there's a mezzanine study area, as well as a common room on the 13th floor. But yeah, rooms available all the way up to the 26th floor. So yeah, once again, great views of London. Slightly different perspective, but yeah, equally very good. Okay, moving on to Tower Bridge. Urbanest Tower Bridge is one of our older properties. So it's in the sort of the city of London, the financial district, and also obviously, as the name would suggest, near Tower Bridge, the Tower of London, and historic parts of the city. So this property is about 5 minutes walk away from 3 tube stations, meaning it's very, very well connected. And it really is part of you know, the sort of the hustle and bustle of the city life, but also the historic aspects of London, and also very close to Brick Lane, which is, you know, a thriving sort of entertainment district, and with food stalls and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a brilliant place to be if you want to experience life in London, maybe not with such a student hat on, if you want to get out there and see what the city's all about. And then we move on to Urbanest Westminster Bridge, which is by far our biggest property. It's 18 stories. It's literally on Westminster Bridge Road, with views of Westminster Bridge and the Houses of Parliament, and the River Thames, of course. It's got fantastic views of the 18th floor common room, and if you have one of those penthouse apartments, great views from there as well. It does also have a gym and a swimming pool in the building, which is obviously great. A couple of extra pounds a week to use the gym, but obviously that's quite a bit cheaper than any other gym in London, let me tell you. But yeah, this is our flagship property, and it's got a range of university students living there. And yeah, any questions about that, just let me know at the end. Finally, though, for this section, we have Urbanest Victoria. Now, this building is only bookable if you are a University Arts London student, and it's, we're an official provider for them, and we have a set, all 170 rooms are reserved for those students. But yeah, it's our newest property. It's a converted Victorian property that we've made into student accommodation. And yeah, it's fast becoming one of my favourite to go and visit because of the area that it's in, and it's just a little bit different to everything else that we have to offer. So I'm going to move on to what you would expect to experience as a student living in one of our buildings, and that ranges from how we look after you to the events that we put on. So we have a very thorough welfare and social programme that starts from the moment that you move in and even before you move in. We make sure that you're ready to come to the property, that you have everything you need for life in London and life as a student. And then we would do a welcome party to make sure everyone gets to know each other. And then through the year, we have a range of activities and events, everything from Halloween parties to CV writing clinics, just to make sure that the full spectrum of interests and needs are catered for. Obviously, we would say more than anything else, if you have something that you want us to do, please let us know and we'll see if we can make it happen. I mean, obviously, if you think maybe we should be doing more for Thanksgiving, if you think maybe we should have a French noir film discussion group, just let us know and we'll try and accommodate. Now, obviously, given everything that's been going on this year, we've had to segue away from as many, in-person events as I'm sure you can imagine, just so to ensure the safety of the residents that have stayed with us. And as a result, we come up with more of a remote welfare and social programme. Now, that involves a number of different things, from Zoom parties within the buildings to making sure you're looking after yourself in your room, and that comes from everything from yoga, live yoga sessions on Instagram, to high intensity interval training sessions on Instagram, as well as tips on mindfulness and self-care, as well as online studying and everything in between. We're trying to make sure that people are well looked after and feel not like they're not isolated and forgotten about in our accommodation or indeed anywhere else. And just to make sure to remind everyone to look after themselves and each other. So that takes me on to our coronavirus safety section of the presentation. I'll just spin you through this video that we've got to show you, then a little bit more after that. But yeah, bear with me 1 second. as I mentioned earlier, the safety of our residents is of the utmost importance to us. So at the moment, we've been a little bit more strict on guests coming over and stuff like that, but that's for the start of the next academic year. But to be honest, we've been running and operating this sort of policy all the way through February, March, April, and into the present day, just because we've been open, we've still had people living with us, and we've sort of honed and perfected the policies to make sure that all our residents are safe and secure. That's not going to change for any time soon. That's pretty much our sole priority, is making sure that the safety of our residents is maintained. It really is the most important thing to us. So we obviously will help as much as possible in making that process easy for you. We'll try our best to take your parcels and your food deliveries up if you need to self-isolate and everything like that. But essentially, we are here to help, and that's really our mission statement. That really is what separates us from everyone else in terms of the student accommodation market, as well as our fantastic properties in London, of course, great locations and great rooms. But really, it's you that we're interested in. It's you that we want to look after and keep safe. So, yes, thank you very much for listening, everyone, and please do let me know if you have any questions.
Excellent. Thanks, Matt. That was very insightful. Really useful to know the COVID-19 regulations, actually, not just from a student perspective, but from obviously a personal perspective. I think everybody will have an opinion on it. Everybody will, be intrigued to know what different companies are doing. So thank you very much for that. So for all the viewers watching at home, at your office, at your desks, thank you for viewing. It has been fantastic. I will host a Q&A session now. We've had many questions come in from our Facebook platform, so I will try and get through as many as I possibly can. So any that we don't get through, I will obviously bank up the questions and we'll reach out to you afterwards, whether it's myself or Matt, depending on whether you've chosen to opt in or opt out of the marketing preferences. So Matt, I do have a few questions for you. Some we had as people registered, but what I will do is I'm going to touch on the COVID questions first, because I think that was the most important issue at the moment and on everyone's mind. So we have a question here from Robin from the Netherlands, who I believe is on our Facebook platform at the moment, who has asked, if he comes over to the UK and actually stays at one of your properties, does he need to take a test to ensure he can stay in a property, and also if anyone in the property does actually catch COVID-19, what are the rules in terms of the students in the property having to self-isolate? Obviously, I can answer a little bit of that in terms of the government guidelines. I'd strongly recommend that you visit the government website, but in terms of Urbanest stance, where are you guys at that?
Sure. Okay. So if you're there, Robin, hi. Just to answer that, we do at the moment. We don't require you to have a test before coming. I mean, essentially, this is going to be your home for the year. So in the same way that you're at home when you're in the Netherlands or wherever you are in the world, this is your new home. So we want you to view it as that in as many ways as possible, and this is of course one of them. So we are doing remote check-ins. Everything's done remotely, so we're not interacting with any students when they arrive at the property. We are handing them a key, an envelope containing that key and some other information, and then we are setting people on their way. So once they're in their room, say you have booked a ensuite bedroom in a 6-person flat. That 6-person flat is now your household. So the UK government guidelines are that each household needs to sort of quarantine if there is if anyone is diagnosed with a positive case, and as a result, that's what will happen here. So say you check in and you have COVID-19, you would self-isolate in your personal room, and then we as Urbanest staff will bring you your food deliveries, etc. and so on to the front door. But everyone else in that flat also does have to self-isolate for 14 days. Now, there are quite a lot of countries at the moment that the UK government has ordained that do need to self-isolate for 14 days anyway. So that's sort of what we're looking into doing at the moment. We're offering early arrivals, so students can come to the property earlier if their courses start a few days after their tenancy start, and they're gonna miss it because they need to self-isolate. We will let people arrive early. Please do get in touch about that if you're interested. And we also are sort of setting up little bits and bobs to try and make it known that if you're in a flat and you are self-isolating, you're not coming out because you don't want to talk to anyone. You have to be in there. But as I said, the household is the key phrase here. If you're in a household with 6 other people, that is your new household, and everyone has to sort of, if there is a case, everyone has to self-isolate within that household.
Thank you very much, Matt. And just staying on the coronavirus topic as well, Cherie from Nigeria has just asked, and it's very repeatable to what you've just said already, but it's not something that you mentioned. But in terms of the maintenance issues in the property, obviously during these unprecedented times, obviously we've got to try and maintain our distance and stay away from people. Can you assure the viewers, your potential tenants, that if there is an issue in the property, it will be maintained to the highest level and as efficiently as possible compared to what it would have been before all these uncertain times?
Sure. No, of course. So the way we're operating that, so say there's an issue with the building as a whole. Someone has to come in to fix the boiler. I'm really not an expert on this sort of stuff, but someone has to come in and fix the boiler. They are from an accredited company. They sort of test and trace, which is the UK thing. Here they are tracked to be within the property, and they have no interaction with students. Now, if there's something wrong with your room specifically, say a light bulb's gone out, and you are self-isolating, that is a slightly grey area, because obviously you're in that room and we are not allowed to go in the room with you. We are simply not allowed to do it at the moment. If there is an issue, say you come down for in the morning on your way out to university and say there's a problem with my sink, can someone have a look at it? We will only go into that room alone. We'll only be one person, and they will look at it when you're out of the room. If you're still in, they will come back when you're not in. Effectively, we want to make sure that everything works as it should be. There are obviously restrictions to this, and that restriction mostly is, if you're in the room, we can't be in there with you, unfortunately, just because it's not safe. And it's not that it's not safe, but we want to make sure that everyone is safe as possible and eliminate all unnecessary touch points. And that, of course, obviously, it's important that everything in your room works, but we just try and work around that as much as possible. So yes, that would be the answer to that one.
Of course, excellent. And I hope, Cherie, that has put your mind to rest a little bit, because that is a question that's coming in quite a lot through Facebook as we speak. So that would have answered quite a few inquiries there. Just another question, Matt, with regards to the university partnerships that you mentioned earlier on in the presentation. There was a few London universities that you haven't mentioned. What about those that are going to those universities? Are they exempt from this? I mean, there'll be a few watching this that'll go, I'm going to Kingston, I'm going to Brunel, I'm going to City Uni, or one of the University of Londons that you didn't mention or that aren't on the list. Are they appropriate and applicable?
Of course, yeah. So the universities that I mentioned were ones that we sort of have a relationship with, whereby we house their students. Now, they're rooms that you book through the university. They're rooms that appear on the university's website. But in terms of all the other London universities, yeah, of course, we have, I think maybe last year was our first year that we had a student from every single university, educational institution, any sort of campus that has a London-based campus, or sort of outside, just a little bit outside. It was, yeah, so we do cater for absolutely everyone. Obviously, some properties are more suitable than others in terms of distance, but yeah, we definitely do. For instance, University of Westminster, we used to have a very close relationship with them, and sadly we don't anymore in terms of offering beds for their students directly. But that relationship in terms of the number of students that we house hasn't really gone away. We still have lots of University of Westminster students, and yeah, anyone who wants to book a room that is in full-time education, they are more than welcome to do so.
Cool. Okay, excellent. Thank you. And this question coming in from Jason from Ireland, Lily from England, and forgive me if I've pronounced this wrong, Francois, I believe, from Monaco, wants to know, can they change their rooms when they're in the property? So if they decide for whatever reason, they don't like the distance, the commute, the room itself, can they change it at any point?
So in a normal year, we say that, yes, that's absolutely fine. You can move into the property. If you don't like it and there's an available room elsewhere within that property, you can change over your reservation, no problem at all. Now, there's a couple of issues on that. First of all, if there's an available room, is the caveat that I would put on there. There's not always the availability to move around because we're normally completely and utterly full to the brim. However, there is always wiggle room, and we'll make you aware if someone cancels, and then you can go into their room instead. Now, the reason I said in a normal year is that at the moment we have a policy in place whereby if you want to check in early, which I mentioned earlier in the presentation, you can do so, but you have to check into your own room because we're not moving people around in rooms. Now, whether that extends to moving once you're at the start of the tenancy, I'm not 100% sure. I must admit, I would say that there'll probably be more of a rush this year of people to maybe they move into the room, they don't feel as comfortable as they would like in sharing with 4 or 5 other people, and they want to move into a studio. Now, if we have the availability, we will try to help as much as possible with this, because like I said, I don't want to sort of hammer the point too hard, but we do want people to be as comfortable as possible, and your sort of safety and happiness is all we really care about. So if it makes you, if it will help you, and we can sort of, all it costs to us is like an extra clean of that room to get it turned around for someone else, that should be fine. So yeah, I would say it's probably one of those things, like so many of the coronavirus announcements from the UK government, I'm sure from everyone watching around the world's governments, no one really knows what the complete and utter full story yet until the situation arises. But yeah, I can't foresee any problems with that.
Okay, cool, thank you. And the final 3 or 4 questions before we wrap up, I appreciate it's everyone's time. What contingency plans do you have in place for students who need to leave under exceptional circumstances? Obviously, we've not just got the COVID-19 situation at the moment, but people could fall ill. People could have a family bereavement. Is there anything in place at the moment moving forward that you could reassure our viewers with?
So in terms of, I'll just touch on the COVID thing. I know we talked about it extensively, but that's obviously a concern. You know, this year we had however many people had to leave their tenancies, leave the country because the university courses weren't happening. And we accommodated as much as we could, as many people as asked, we helped, and we made sure that people that stayed were looked after. So if anything like that happens again, I'm sure that's how we will handle the situation. In terms of bereavements and sort of illnesses and stuff like that, it really is a case-by-case basis. We will be as accommodating as possible. If you cannot stay then for the remainder of your contract for whatever reason, as long as you can prove it to us, sorry to be a little bit sort of hard-nosed about it, but if there is proof that what you're saying is true, it will be referred to sort of people, the higher-ups, and more often than not, if it's a valid reason, we will let people go. Because yeah, we understand that things change in life. It's not just coronavirus, it's a whole host of other things. So we want to try and be as helpful as possible. Okay.
And this question from Serena in Germany, what happens if you don't have a UK bank account? Does that matter?
Finally, in a non-COVID related question, that's great. Yeah, that one's a bit easier to answer. Yes, that's fine. We don't. You don't have to have a UK bank account to book a room with us. It can be a bank account from anywhere in the world. You can pay by bank transfer, or you can pay by payment cards, but that's absolutely fine. It's no problem. Just sort of expand on that a little bit. A lot of people also ask us, do you need a UK guarantor when you book with us? You don't. It can be anyone from anywhere in the world. So be it your mum or your dad, aunt, uncle, basically whoever's over 18 and is willing to be your guarantor on your booking, that's fine with us.
Okay, and the final 2 questions as well. I mean, I'll save the overriding question for the end, but we have had one question come in many times and before the presentation actually, is are the possessions of the tenant insured when you live in the accommodation, or do the tenants need to arrange that themselves? I know you touched upon it already in your presentation, but what about all their possessions?
Okay, yep. So every room has contents insurance as part of your rent. It's with a company called Ensley, who do a lot of student accommodation contents insurance. Now that contents insurance is for everything within your room, and it has all the sort of the normal sort of insurance policies and caveats and stuff to it. You can expand that policy. For instance, if you have like a bike or something like that that's not within your room, you can expand the policy to include that as well. So yes, it's free, but it can be sort of bolstered up. It's the same with the Wi-Fi actually. So Wi-Fi is free in every single room. It's part of the package of the room, but you can pay for a little bit more if you are, I don't know, an online gamer or something, and the bandwidth's not really treating you fine. So yes, everything, you can pay a little bit more for it for the contents insurance, but for the basic package, yeah, we offer that as part of the service.
Sure, and I'm sure that example will go down well. You know, the gaming reference in this modern day world, everyone seems to be on it. So
exactly.
the final question here, just before we wrap up, Matt, is we got some students looking for accommodation outside of Zone 1 London and without the featured universities that you've mentioned.
Yeah.
Can you offer any help in terms of, you know, we've had some students from the likes of the County of Kent, Birmingham, looking to study with those universities. Can you offer any accommodation, or do you have any partnerships in place?
So yeah, as I said, I mean, I probably bored you to death with this fact. We are just Zone 1 Central London. We don't have anything outside of London to offer for students, unfortunately. I would say that there are a number of different student accommodation options all across the city, across the country, who offer student accommodation. I think each city probably would have 2 or 3 various options. So if not, if you're at a loose end as well, just always ask your university because they obviously are very keen for you to be well looked after, and private student accommodation is a great way to do that. So yeah, unfortunately not. We don't have any sort of partnerships with anyone really. We're quite sort of want to forge our own path a little bit, but I would say that if you are stuck and you are interested in booking student accommodation in somewhere that's not London, just ask the uni, go on their website, they'll have an accommodation page and it will have what they recommend for that particular city.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Matt. And just before we do wrap up as well, it's important to mention in the presentation, you did mention anyone that quotes Postgrad Solutions before the 23rd of August, I believe it was, the 24th of August, will receive 1 month free rent. So please make note of that to all our viewers on the Zoom platform and on the Facebook platform as well. If you could share your details with us in any way, shape or form, if you can either go on to the Postgrad Solutions Facebook page or get in touch directly with Urbanest, that will be fantastic. But thank you for your time, Matt. It's been really insightful. Fantastic to hear all the policies that you guys have got, and that all is kind of running a little bit back to normal. What the new normal is, I don't think anybody knows. But to all our viewers, thank you very much. And until the next webinar that we host, which I'm sure will be either in the next month or 2, we'll see you then, and keep safe. Thank you and goodbye.
Thanks very much, everyone.